The little radio family that created my favorite husband, they had grown into a factory that employed hundreds of people, shot miles of film, and produced dozens of other TV shows.
I think they were happier before they became stars. I think that grind got to them.
My parents had become America's best known and most admired married couple. They both worked very hard to promote their image.
She worked very hard, and she was willing to work just like a dog all the time, love rehearsal.
If you want something done, ask a busy person to do it, because the more you do, the more you can do. And don't you forget it.
Bessie just seemed to run the studio with one hand and the show with another. I don't know how he did it. We used to call him the Cuban arm because he could charm you and then come and put his arm around you, call you amigo.
They were there very early, and then of course he was running back and forth from the set to, juggling the business, and the pressure was building.
They were never really as happy with any of the rest of it, any of the trappings and the houses and the kids, as they were when they were at work.
And to spend the time in their careers that Lucy and Desi had to spend to do it successfully, they had to take some time away from the kids. And they're raised by the servants.
Willie Mae Barker was her name, and she was another woman in my life, as well as my mother and my grandmother, Dee Dee.
She had Dee Dee to take care of you, and that's as good as her or Lucille taking care of you, in her mind. And now that may not be right, but she didn't think it was wrong. She really didn't.
I really feel that Lucille just didn't have the tools to learn, to mother, or to nurture. They just weren't there for her. I think Lucille had to be an adult as a child, just had to take over, because Dee Dee was always working.
I never learned to have a playful relationship with my mother, because we were always too busy.
In that respect, I never saw your mother play with you. I didn't. She would say, "I love you," and that, but I never saw her play with you.
I remember your mother being very on when people were around, and then when people were not around, being very off. It was like your mom had an on-off switch.
I like discipline in children. I like to be able to have the children likable so that other people will like them.
Yeah,
I know. I don't want a little brat running around. It's bad enough what they do.
If she wasn't in control, then she was pretty unhappy.
She was always so busy making sure everything was right. She wanted you all to be, everything to be perfect. And I think your daddy always impressed me as he knew you weren't and he wasn't. He was more outwardly affectionate.
He was working all the time. But when he came home, he would do stuff with us.
My father had this amazing sense of wonder at the miracle of nature. And he'd just take your hand and walk you around and say things to you about, isn't that, look at that sunset, God really outdid himself tonight, and Lucy and I would sit there looking at, like, wow, and he'd instill in us this sense that there was something about this life that was worth living.
When my mother came home, she would still be working. Do you know what I'm saying? She would still be working. I have to fight every day of my life not to go home to my kids and be there physically but not be there. I'm still on the phone. I'm still cleaning silver. I'm still cleaning a closet. I'm not, hello, Mom, you've been gone all day. Could we just sit down and color or go outside? It was really hard for her to be there.
In ways, I feel sort of sorry for her because I feel that she never let herself go. She never let herself love you kids the way she could have, or maybe even love Desi the way she could have.
Lucille Ball envisioned the white picket fence, and I think indeed believed that fantasy. She did not live it, but in her mind, her interviews were always about the family, my children come first, work is down the line. It is my belief that Lucille Ball's first love was her work.
The best time is when you're working and you're happy, and we really had a ball.
I think there are a lot of parents that can be gone, and when they come back, they're really there. They're really connected with their kids, and I just think that these two people had enough problems of their own, for various reasons, that they needed that work.
In our first movie for MGM, The Long Long Trailer, we had a lot of fun. But we had even more fun making Forever Darling.
Movies, television shows, commercials. My dad managed all of my parents' projects, and he co-starred every week in I Love Lucy, and he also ran Desilu Studios on top of it.
He also took enormous risks. I mean, when you stop to think that he went and bought RKO during a break in the show, which we were doing.
$6 million cash. That was the deal. My heavens, after having started at RKO at $75 a week, now she owns the studio.
As a matter of fact, we decided to sell I Love Lucy back shortly before that.
We had used that reasoning in justifying the sale of the I Love Lucy shows back to CBS. We sold all right, title, and interest to them.
Why did you do that?
I told you, right or wrong, Lucy, that was the decision we made.
Even though they tried to maintain a working relationship, after the divorce, my parents' professional partnership fell apart too.
Is that the toughest
Yes,
period of life?
yes. It got tough on the set, too, at the end. At the thought of quitting.
I knew it was the end. It was an end of something very special, and I remember being very upset.
I will never forget the day they were doing the last of the I Love Lucy's, and she was playing a geisha. And the white makeup. And she'd been crying a lot. The eyes were extremely red. It gave her a rather, in looking at her, what I thought was a grotesque look, because the eyes and sad.
But kisses and hugs and tears was the ending.
It's a tragedy in many ways because they went at it for all the right reasons originally. And the only reason I Love Lucy exists is because they wanted to be together so they could have a family and make the marriage work. So they made this show that took off like gangbusters, and now the rest of the universe has it, and they never had it. They never got what they wanted. Parent Trap, which was a Disney movie starring Hayley Mills, who played twin sisters who tried to get her two divorced parents back together again. And it worked.
And it worked. They get them back together at the end, and there's the happy ending. And still to this day, I think that life is about finding the happy ending.
In my heart of hearts, I thought that she would go back to my father and they would work it out. And I think I'm not the only kid in America who probably did that.
Desi was already married to Edie. Gary and I were already married, and we were still looking at Parent Trap until finally the 7th time we said, kids, now listen, it's too late.
Lucy got a little more demanding after she and Desi split up.
The Lucy Show. Here's Lucy.
She was by herself. She looked around and he wasn't there. And so she said, oh, I got to do it all by myself. And she didn't know how to do that tactfully.
She treated all the guest stars the same way she treated me. I mean, it was move over, do this, do that. And I remember Jack Benny. He's going, she said, Jack, for Christ's sake, move it. Come over here. And finally he turned to me and he said, somebody tell her she has the job.
Now cut that out!
I think when all of her series ended, I think for her not to have a workplace to go at 10 o'clock in the morning was the biggest blow to her of anything.